No, I have so.
Okay.
I will answer your question in a minute about.
Sure. I'll text you.
Yes, thank you. Okay. Looks like I'm live, guys. Thank you, everybody. Bob, you're there right in the screen.
Yeah. I'm gonna turn myself off.
No problem. Okay. So hello, everybody. I'm Sudha Jamte, and this is Weekly Wed, our usual global speaker series, always hosted by Yash. And Yash is stuck in traffic, and so I get to talk to you again today. So we had done a webinar on language AI and talked to you about our new initiative, Global South in AI. And this time, I just thought we will do the recording back again and bring it back to you and answer your questions, because we have today, August 17th, as our original deadline for submissions at Global South in AI. And we extended that to the 24th. So you get 5 more days or almost a week, so that if you're working on a submission or working on anything related to language AI, this is the place and we'll answer your questions. So what I'm going to do is, we have Susanna Raj here with me. She's one of the program chairs for the call for paper at Global South in AI at NeurIPS. So I'm going to show a little bit of our past webinar, because I heard from many people that they had difficulty joining the webinar, especially we are trying to reach new people. Okay. And so what we're going to do today is, before I get started, I'm recording this. And as always, this is streaming on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitter. And if you're not wanting to be on camera, and I'm doing this from a Zoom session, so I usually have my students typically here who get to answer, ask questions live. And this time, I've invited people from several other amazing groups that are working on language AI. And so if you're new here, go off camera if you don't want to be recorded. And you can speak up. Again, that will also get recorded. Otherwise, if you do not want to speak up, you're welcome to just chat your questions. I will make sure that every single question gets answered. And here is our usual drill. This is our global series, which means we have people from every corner of the world. I can't say that exactly because of the time zone. We don't have people from Australia or early morning in Asia, but we have people from Africa, from Latin America, and sometimes from India. So, and of course, Europe and North America, since I'm joining from there too. So here's the drill. Tell us where you are coming from in the chat, and let's get started. And I'm joining here from San Jose, from Silicon Valley. And I'm going to bring my fellow program chair, Susanna, on. Susanna, if you want to be on camera, it's fine, or do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi. Hello, everyone. I'm
Hello.
Susanna Raj, and I'm from Mountain View, California. And I would like to hear where you are all from. And if you want, you can put it in the chat, or just, you don't have to come on camera. You can just say where you are from.
Awesome. Okay. So Susanna, you did this whole recording. You did this whole webinar last time. And I remember I had a throat problem, sore throat, so I couldn't speak. And that week, in fact, I did my Sudha Live also using a text-to-speech AI tech, so that I typed things and it talked for me. So I'm back here doing my talking. So let us get people, because we have a new set of people who didn't attend the last webinar, and I'm hoping that the new people who could not make it are going to come back and watch this, right? So I know you did a very good job getting people talking about language AI and why it matters last time. Do you think we should do a round of that with the current set of people?
Yeah, we can.
Okay. My style is different from Susanna, so I'm just going to start pointing it directly at people. So when you think about language AI, so Global South in AI is our new initiative. So it's at globalsouthinai.org. If you're curious to see what this all is about, because we've been marketing that a bit, is our newest initiative to add diversity to language AI. And what that means is language AI as it is today is very Western Europe, Latin driven languages, Latin root languages driven. So that means the actual original model for language AI was done only for 5 or 7 languages. And then now we are kind of expanding that to 100 languages using, better technologies. But it is all done with 2 things. One, it's very limited to a set of languages. It's very English centered, and it's as if a person who speaks English is teaching AI English, and then they are translating and trying to learn other languages from that center, instead of anybody else who speaks 7,000 of the other languages in the world trying to learn everything else or bring the richness of their culture and history that is embedded in every language. So that's our attempt to bring people who are from Africa, from Latin America and Asia, and any other indigenous languages that are not in the 5 or 7 languages that is in language AI today. So that's the call that we have. And NeurIPS is a top AI conference, and they have selected us as a social affinity group. So, and we've been approved to go present there. And that's our hope, to bring you with us to New Orleans. And if you can't come in person, you can join hybrid also. That's why we have this call for paper. So Susanna, do you want to tell us about the call for paper?
Yes, it is already live. And as Sudha mentioned a little bit earlier, that we have now extended the deadline, which was today, to August 24th, which really mean we gave an early deadline because we wanted people to file for visas in case they were approved and the papers were selected to actually come from other countries. And it takes at least 3 to 4 months to get a visa approved. So that's why we had a very early deadline. We opened on July 7th, I believe, and now it is August 24th is our current deadline. But our call for paper is very short, like it's only 250 words. You don't have to write more than that. It's basically like 2 paragraphs, that's 250 words. And you just have to let us know about the project that you're working on, or the problem that you're working on, and the solution you have come across. Even if the solution doesn't have an executable format, like you haven't found how to execute your solution, it doesn't matter. That's called a work in progress. You just submit the problem, submit the solution, the idea that you have for the solution, and that itself is enough. And that's just 2 paragraphs. You submit and it goes through. We will be able to help you before the submissions. We will be able to look at your draft and help you out in the process. But once you submit on the portal, which is open review, it is totally out of our control. It goes to open review, and from there we have selected very amazing reviewers and area chairs who will now look at your submissions. It will be double blind. That means the reviewers cannot see the names of the authors, and the authors cannot see who is reviewing the papers. So it will be a double blind process. And the paper matching system is also going to be done by open review. So we have no control over that, who reviewed which paper. We won't even know that. So once the reviewers decide and select your abstracts, and then we come into the picture again. And we will help you. There is, I think, what is the date, Sudha, for the poster workshop?
So September 10th. So we are beginning to see some submissions, and we wanted more diversity to the submissions, and we want the people who want to go live, in person to get the visas, right? So now as the submissions are coming in, so we had a July 31st as the first deadline. And the set of people who submitted that have started getting their acceptance already. And then now August 17th was our next deadline. So those people who are submitting within that deadline will hear back again in 15 days. And then the last deadline will be the 24th, and then they should hear back in another 15 days, from there. September 10th is a 3-hour Zoom session, our first Global South in AI meetup, as we are calling it, where everybody whose submission is accepted. So basically, you are working on something related to language AI, and you make a 250-word submission saying, I'm working on this project, I'm building this model, or I'm building this data set for this language, or I'm building this kind of application where it's involving some kind of Global South language in some form, right? And the judges approve, the area chairs approve it, and you get an acceptance. Then everybody who gets an acceptance is going to be invited to this special Global South in AI meetup. So you're not going to see a live stream here. You're not going to be in the know if you're not, one of those people who has submitted and got an acceptance. And what we are going to do is, as Susanna was saying, it could be a work in progress. You have an aspiration to bring your language translation in some form, or an application that involves your language that is local to a specific country that is not in mainstream language AI in some form, and you make a submission and you get accepted. As soon as you get accepted, you get invited to the September 10th meetup. And at the meetup, we are going to host a poster building session. So in research, the first step is you get an abstract and you say, this is what I'm working on. This is the problem I'm trying to solve. This is how I'm solving for it. And because we are accepting work in progress submissions, you can say, I've not been able to solve for this problem. And here's where I'm stuck. And that's okay, right? Because that's what we want to do. We want to collaborate and solve for common problems. Why all the 7,000 languages are not in mainstream. And when that happens, the next step to doing the research is you make a poster. And we're going to teach you, those of you, especially I've heard from so many people in the last couple of days, because August 17th was the deadline, saying, I've never published research posters, I've not done research, I have this idea, but I'm not confident to make a submission, and I don't think I'm ready. So don't walk away from an opportunity. If you know language and that language is not mainstream in language AI, you have a responsibility to contribute and be part of this. And so we will teach you to build a poster session. And that's all you need. You don't need to publish a full paper. A typical research paper is, a lot more effort to get to that place. You just need to publish a poster. We'll help you. So that is on September 10th. So back to you, Susanna. You're asking me about the date.
Yes, September 10th, we will teach you how to build a poster, and those posters and those of you who can come in person will be able to come to NeurIPS at New Orleans and come and present your poster there. Your poster will be live there in person, and you can actually communicate with people who come to see your poster and ask questions. This essentially builds your network and exposes you to a community that is more larger and wider, and also have much more access than most of us do. And that is the whole purpose of bringing you to NeurIPS. NeurIPS is one of the world's largest AI conferences. And so that, you will be able to meet and greet with people who have much more access to get your idea into the mainstream. And that is our whole purpose of making sure that this Global South AI Affinity Group gets to present at NeurIPS. So we are looking forward to taking you there.
And one of the things we are looking to do is, I've been separately talking to groups that I know, especially I find a very vibrant language AI community in Africa. And I'm looking at all their work, and they're working on, collaborating and publishing papers. And if you have already published a paper, you cannot come and make that. It's, whatever you're submitting here cannot be already published work. But many of the ideas that people are working and sharing, I'm just looking at that saying it's such a vibrant community, and there's amazing stuff happening in so many African languages. Similarly, there are some groups which are working on Latin America. And the other day, somebody was here when we did the webinar, and she was talking about how there are so many Mayan languages in Latin America. So when you think of Latin America, I've had people who are talking about Brazilian Portuguese and decolonizing data for Brazilian Portuguese from mainstream Portuguese that is in the language AI, and or Spanish, right? That's what we hear about. Again, there are variations of Spanish, not just dialects of Spanish. So I'm seeing, a lot of potential to do work there. So is Yash here already?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes.
Hi, Yash, do you want to jump in? Because I'm just filling in for you. So we've been explaining what is Global Southern AI and what is this call for paper about, because we extended the date to August 24th to accommodate more people. So
Yes,
I'm just going
yes.
to add our host, Yash. Yash, I did the opening and we just, got started. Yash said today that, she's going to ask more questions than, come and do her usual hosting. So Yash, do you have, any question on language AI or what we are doing? And Yash is one of our program chairs here at Global Southern AI. Do you have questions?
So, Sudha, firstly, I would like to ask how somebody can jump into this if they do not have prior exposure to artificial intelligence, to NLP, but they are interested to bring a change with the language that they are used to communicate and which they see around them. So, are there any resources that they can go to and refer and learn? And how are we supporting them? Can they reach out to us? So, these are my questions.
Yes, the answer is we are the resources. We are not going to send them out to an YouTube link or an conference link and to where a depository of research papers are there. Go read them. We are not going to do that. The main resource is us. They will be reaching out to you, Ash, or to me, or to Sudha, and we will hear about their idea, hear about the solution that they are trying to propose, and we will help them draft an abstract that uses AI to convey the solution to the public.
So I want to add one thing. So like Susanna said, we are, so the social affinity group in NeurIPS has women in AI, indigenous in AI, queer in AI. I believe there is an Africans in AI. I hope I'm not, naming that group incorrectly. I think it's Africans in machine learning, if I remember right. So there are several different affinity groups they are bringing because they want to bring people to add diversity to and there is a Latinx in AI, and they're adding diversity. So what we are looking for is to bring people who are not already in the mainstream. So if you're already used to publishing research and making a poster is a piece of cake, you're already working in language AI, if you ping us and say, I'm working on this, I'm stuck, we will give you resources and say, here, you can go to Hugging Face, or you can get this API from here, or, this is where you'll find your data set. We can help you with that. The majority of the submissions we are seeing are people who want to bring what is called as low resource languages. So the definition is, if it is English or any of the mainstream languages from a Western European lens, that's already got training data of language recorded that they can feed in to train the AI. So for example, GPT-3 was built using the Wikipedia. And so it knows English better than any other language. And so the other languages that do not have the data set, if you're thinking, hey, I want to bring that language, then you'll be stuck. So you can have a conversation with us, and there are creative ways of figuring out. So for example, one of my students, Aishatu, she was here last week. She got me thinking about this a couple of years back when I was teaching class AI at Stanford for her batch. And she was saying, Hausa language is the 7th most spoken language in the world. And at that time, Google did not have Hausa translation. Google has an Hausa translation, but it is one of the 100 languages added in recent times. So it is not as accurate as it would have been if there was a proper model built for Hausa, focused on Hausa. And what she did was she said, I'm going to do this. And she started collecting data for it. And she found out that it was a low resource language, which means she could not get data easily to start building the NLP model. And it's been a journey for her. So she's not given up on it, but she's found other researchers who are trying to get creative because it's a spoken language. So she even went and found there's a radio channel of people who are talking in Hausa in the local community. And she said, hey, I can use this voice recording of this and start using that as training data. So there are creative ways of how people who have, a passion with certain languages, but do not have the data set for it, do not have the technical knowledge for it, do not know whether something is already done in that space and whether they are reinventing the wheel. These are the kind of things that people are thinking and stopping themselves, and we are talking to them. So I just added that in our chat. And for those people who are on the live stream, I just added it here. GlobalSouthinAI, one word, .slack.com is our newest Slack channel, literally new because we had teething trouble and people could not get in last week when we promoted this. So you can join there and it's free like other typical Slack channels. And you can come meet other people if you want to partner with somebody on an idea, or you can talk to one of us and we will tell you. And I have a bunch of people who are talking to me and Susanna and Yash and saying, hey, I'm thinking about this. Is this viable? I'm stuck with this. I actually was spending time just before our call with somebody who was saying the 250 word abstract, Susanna, and and this person made an abstract and it became like 300. And she was like, is that okay? So if somebody submitted, if they try to submit something little over 250 words, is that an extended abstract? Will our system take it?
I'm not so sure. I have to get back to you on that.
Okay.
But I think it would be good to keep the abstract to the
250
word limit that we have set, because the system may reject it because it goes over the word limit that we have kept it. Okay. Unless we try to extend it manually. That
okay, so then the guidance is to stick with 250 words exactly. Yes. So this is what that other person, she has a brilliant project that she's working on. It's work in progress because they don't have the data set, but she's trying to get creative and working on it in a different language that we've not spoken about so far. And I'll tell her that she has to stick to the 250. So those are the kind of things. So if you have not done research and you think, okay, how do I get started and what's the next steps of it? Talk to us. That's the easiest thing. Come talk to us on the Slack. If you're seeing this in any of the channels, you can add a comment and I will go to every one of them personally and make sure that I, find you or, reply back and stuff. And yes, you made a very good point about resources. So we have a 4th chair, Pariya Sarin, who's actually a high school student and our intern. She's the one who maintains our website and everything. So I will talk to Pariya because Pariya has been saying the same thing. Should we not give people more resources? So what I'm going to do after this is make sure at GlobalSouthinAI.org in the same site, we will add resources. So if you are working on language model, aspirationally, you want to get into it, we'll give you resources that you can just go and play with it and get started. So that I promise that I will do that. And in fact, we don't even have to reinvent the wheel. There are resources for language AI from several different communities that are already working on it. And we can link back to that. I saw Chris here. I don't know if Chris wants to introduce himself because I think that his group has amazing research. Chris, if you're able to speak, I would love for you to introduce yourself because I mean the work you're doing with the Landfrika is amazing and it's wealth of resources. So I would love for you to talk to us and tell us about it, if it's possible for you to speak right now.
Yeah, sure. I cannot share my face though. My camera has some issues. Hi
It's fine.
everyone. I'm Chris. I'm really great to be here. I am an NLP researcher and also doing work on causality. These are two areas I'm very interested in. And the thing connecting these two areas, so I do NLP for African languages and I do causality at Miller. And the thing connecting these two areas is, what do you do when you don't have enough data? So out of the 7,000 world languages, over 90% of them are on the low resource regime where you don't have enough data for them. And it's easy to say just get more data, but realistically, that's not very, very possible quickly. So at Causality, I'm looking at how to make better decisions with very small data. So besides that, I'm the founder of Landfricker. Landfricker is an initiative to connect African language resources. So part of the reason why there has been little progress in African language NLP is because it turns out that there actually have been many works and many efforts, but they're all scattered around the web. And because African languages are not so popular compared to English, you have very little, if you, for example, if you search for machine translation data sets for Afar, it's an African language, you hardly get very useful results. So what we are doing is just making a concerted effort to actually find these resources. So by resources, I mean research papers, data sets, software, linguistic papers. So one unique thing we're doing is it's bridging the gap between linguistics and natural language processing and other domains, sociology and finance, because most times when people say NLP, they just mean tech, but we can actually learn a lot from the other domains. So at Landfricker, we're just finding all these resources and connecting them and putting them in a kind of a central place where you can easily find them. Yeah, and besides that, I do research in Africa, NLP, so NLP for African languages with many colleagues at Masakane. That's a community of researchers and people who are interested in African languages, and they're very amazing. So these are some of the amazing things that we do, and I'm very glad to be here.
Thank you, Chris. I've joined the Masakane Slack, and it's like almost 1,500 researchers. It's such an amazing, vibrant community. So it's beautiful. I don't know any African language, so I have a dream to go to Nigeria. So I'm going to prepare myself for it one day. But the activity I'm seeing there and the creativity of problem solving when you are talking about low resource languages and stuff is amazing. So I'm going to share my screen and show Landfricker. Landfricker is the site. They have a Slack group, and you also host like weekly speaker series related to NLP.
Yes.
Yes, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Okay, yes. So we have the Landfricker Talks. Sorry, it's not on the website there, but if you go to blog, then you see Landfricker Talks. Landfricker Talks is about creating a space to share efforts around low resource research in low resource languages. So what we see in the world right now is there's a lot of hype around big models and big things, which is good. But we believe that the small ones count because they're actually very useful to the community. They can be used by the community. So not everyone has the money and the resources to download huge models just for your community. So we focus on all efforts, especially the small ones, and we create a space for people to share the works that they've done. It could be an idea, it could be a controversial idea. So it's anything actually, from an idea to a paper to a project, published, unpublished, NLP, non-NLP linguistics. Just create the space for people to talk. And then the second aim of this is to create a knowledge base of information around low resource languages. So the kind of vision I have is in the next 10, 20 years, if you go up, you would see, I think up to the top. Yeah, Landfricker Talks to the top there, yeah. So the kind of vision we have for Lanfrica Talks is like, next 20 years, you could have information on the internet about African languages, low resource languages, so that these languages are digitized and don't get extinct. So that's it about Lanfrica Talks. Anyone is welcome to if you want to give a talk, there's something below, there's an email to reach out to. So everyone is welcome to give a talk, and we have it bi-weekly.
Okay, thank you, Chris. I've been actually tracking that, and I share your upcoming talks as soon as you publish that.
Thank you very much.
And I share that on my weekly live stream that I do on Fridays and also in my newsletter. So
Thank you.
Yes. And the good thing is, I love how so well organized this is. So you can go find data sets, you can contribute. As you know, the Lanfrica site is like amazingly done. You must have a lot of volunteers, I'm hoping, behind that. If you miss a talk, it's actually recorded in the same place. So it's not like us that you sign up and, if you get the Zoom and then you don't have to go next. So this is amazing. So thank you for that. So that is one of the communities which is actively involved in language research. And I'm going to add the pin back for everybody. Sorry for that, guys. Bringing Susanna back here, and I'm bringing Yash back, because I feel like we did not do justice enough to Yash's question. So thank you, Chris, for sharing that link. So to link to lanfrica.com. Yash, I'm going to ask you to go find AI for Bharat, and if you don't mind. And so that would be another of those communities. I mean, for me personally, the inspiration was, and I sit here in Silicon Valley, we look at the language model, like, the excitement about, transformer models and models that supposedly know the entire world's languages, or it knows everything because it's covered the Wikipedia, right? And then you see that it doesn't cover every language. For example, my mother tongue is a language called Tamil, and it happens to be a language that Susanna knows too. And it's a very ancient language, and it's considered one of the classical languages. In fact, I recently found out, even though I've been living here in California for many years, I found out that University of Berkeley has a Tamil chair, and they've been teaching the language and doing research on it for about 50 years. And at least the research and stuff, the chair has been more recent, but I was not even aware of that. And so when I started thinking about language AI, one of the things was, hey, Alexa does not understand my language. In fact, when my mom visits and she speaks Tamil, Alexa thinks she's hearing English and tries to give some answer, right? She takes that and makes whatever she does and starts singing some song or saying something absurd. And I've been learning Spanish recently, and I found that there are variations of Spanish. There's no one Spanish. And so when I try to get a translation of Spanish from Alexa, she immediately switches and starts talking to me in Spanish, which is kind of not what I was expecting when I say, what is the word for Spanish for this? So we have a very long way to go, even with voice. So Susanna, I want to bring us back to this Global South in AI call about the 3 tracks. Can you tell us about the 3 tracks, and then we'll talk about voice?
Okay. Our 3 tracks, maybe you can share our website page. Can you share screen?
Yes, I can. You can hear, hold on. Here. So this long URL actually expanded from GlobalSouthinAI.org. That's where I went.
Yes.
Okay, GlobalSouthinAI.org. And then it expands to this. This is the same site where we host our weekly Wednesday and our recording. So, some of you who are here regulars might be familiar with the setup. So where am I going? So this is the call for paper. And if you
I
click
think
it,
you have to go down below that. We may have the information about.
Yeah, this is the last webinar we did, Susanna did. And if you missed it, you can watch the full recording here. No sign up, nothing is needed here. So we are going to the 3 tracks, is it?
Yes.
Yeah.
So those are our 3 tracks: voice, data, and models. So voice can be anything that, you regarding any language, the sounds and the accents, as Sudha has put up there, the words that are unique to non-Western languages, which can be any language other than English. So it is it can be a translation, it can be a transliteration. If you have anything that is, going to bring inclusivity to the languages, language AI by using any voice related solutions, that can go under voice. Data is, as Sudha was mentioning earlier, low resource languages have trouble finding data. So there has to be unique solutions like, going to books or, radio channels and, movies. Some people have used movies and television series and even music songs, lyrics from that. Those are all can be data sets. So if you have come up an unique data set, then that can go under data. Or if you are trying to build a unique data set for a low resource language, that also can go under data. Models is pretty self-explanatory that, you can, it's just creating a new model or a language AI model for any resource, AI resource, low resource language. So those are our 3 tracks. So it pretty much covers any solution you have will easily fall into one of these. And even if you don't know where it is falling, it doesn't matter. If you think it generally falls within these 3 areas, please submit that. And then we know when we are working on your poster session, we will try to separate them into those 3 categories and present. So
I want to add. So thank you, Susan. I want to add one thing about data specifically. I mean, everybody who works with me, my students now, I'll bring everything back to data. So when somebody is thinking like, of their language and they're not seeing that in mainstream and they're not building models, it's pretty intimidating to say, I have to go build that data set. In fact, one of the questions that's pending that I have to answer to somebody is they're trying to start a data set somebody else, right, in a different domain. And they were asking, what are the general guidelines of what should I do, right and wrong, in starting to building out data set. And so it's an intimidating exercise when you say data. I have a issue with calling language data. It is data, right, from an NLP perspective. But so I want to take a step back. So if you are working on it, what is getting training data for AI, building data sets, contributing data sets, it's great. Go ahead, and you might be working on it. I'm seeing from several people chatting with us that they're trying to do something related to their language. In fact, there are variations of English, unfortunately, because of colonization from various different countries. There is one version, there's a mix of English with Hindi that 350 million people use and chat they chat in Hindi language, but using English script. And that's called Hinglish. And that's kind of common for people who speak that. In fact, in Singapore, there is Singlish, and there are variations of English also that would qualify for submitting here if you're doing something in Global South in AI, if you're making a submission. So there are people who are building data sets for it. There are some variations of some minimum data set that exist. You could add to it from your work, kind of thing, is one. But I want you to take a step back if you're thinking about data. I was talking about how my mother tongue Tamil is the classical language. It doesn't come from the Latin roots. It's one of those ancient languages, and there must be data sets because people are talking about it, and there's some translations and things that exist. But when I, as a native speaker of that language, know certain patterns that this language has, that is not there in English or any of the other languages that I'm aware of. So I could actually publish research on specifics of something in that language that the AI can learn. And there is something called repetition words, and there are like two words that I'm going to use my language word. So we will say come fast, and we'll say gada gada, means the word gada gada used together means fast. There's a separate word for fast, but this is something we use as repetition words. So, and then when I learned the language as a child, I know when you say fast for something that is flowing water, fast for lightning, fast for wind, and there are variations of this. So this repetition words is not something that's available in English. So when you try to teach AI, it will take the word gada gada as two different words and say, oh, it's double, and I'll just use once, and then the meaning goes away and it becomes something else. And so I was thinking, and I'm a program chair, so I'm not going to be able to contribute to this research here, but I was thinking I could actually create some data set from my knowledge of this language, of the bunch of words which are these repetition words, and bring it to train AI, to mainstream AI, to understand my language better. And I was looking at, has people published research on this? Can I do something? And coming from knowing only my language and thinking that it doesn't exist in any of the Western languages that I've been introduced to, I'm thinking it's so unique, nobody else has it. And turns out there are a couple African languages that have this concept of repetition words. And it was amazing for me. So I could publish research, partner with Chris or somebody from Lanfrica, and find out what does this double words mean, and how is it used in context in my language versus any of the African languages. Maybe we could publish a research in collaboration with somebody else who's speaking a different language altogether. And that would be data that we would be publishing. So the long thing I'm saying is that you can come up with data as a submission, even by just sharing patterns and saying, okay, now what do I want to do with it? I want AI to learn my language in its native form and not as an English translation. That's the premise from where I'm starting. But when I see patterns that are unique like that, and I know there are some clicks in South African languages that are not in mainstream English. So you could think about, patterns in your language, and that is one, right? And coming to voice, various accents, and that's a given. So every language, whoever is speaking, you could contribute to that using, various different accents. Suresh, you were talking to me about voice. Do you have a question about voice?
No, I think this session is very enlightening. I did not even think about the word gada gada, right? I mean, it is a common word in the language, but using it as a sort of a precursor for submission triggers a lot of thoughts in my mind. So yeah. It's amazing.
Yes, thanks.
No, there's so much thoughts I'm getting on it right now. So that's great. Thank you.
Okay. So talking of so if anybody is watching this and Chris has his hands up. Chris, what do you want to say?
I just wanted to say real quick that that's a really great idea, what you say about understanding the patterns in your language and using them to better inform the AI models. That's a really, really wonderful thing to do. I'm pretty sure folks at Masakani and Lanfrica would love to do some research on that. As a matter of fact, there was this paper, Kenya BERT. I think it won an ACL award. ACL is a conference. And what they did was they went, so you have the Kinyarwanda language, and they were able to train a language model on the language by also adding a morphology form to the model. So So they know that Kinyarwanda is a morphological language, very rich in morphology. And so they were able to like incorporate that pattern, as you call it, into this model, creating a kind of a different language model for specifically for this language. And that was really interesting because it was done by Andre and Antoine. It's interesting because, you know, it's not just about getting data now, but it's about incorporating the features of the language to make these models better for your language. So I really agree with what you're saying.
Thank you. And Chris, if you know people who are, you know, working on, and I would like to talk to you offline, maybe, you know, what are the African languages that have the repetition? If you happen to know it, I can't assume you'll know. Well, African languages is hundreds of them. That is one that, you know, I would like to collaborate for, you know, later I can do that for here at Global South in AI at New IPS because I'm a program chair. So, but I would like, and it will be a longer process to go, you know, get started on that, to do that research, but I would love to do that if, you know, other people are willing to collaborate on that.
So the one question I have, so how does one know that, these are the languages that is already solved? Meaning, not to reinvent the wheel, right? Let's say if a Korean language is already, there's a translation, it's all in place, right? I mean, there's nothing that, we could do, right? So let's say there's 100 languages. I do not know what's the list of the 100 languages. Is this particular program trying to see what are the fringe languages or what is the expectation, Sudha?
Very good point. So if you talk to somebody who's speaking Korean, they would tell you it's not done deal. I mean, first of all, nothing with AI is done deal because AI is constantly learning. And I find that even when, when I speak English with Alexa, I have to, it's not even the accent, right? I thought it was the accent. And then my husband comes from the same, from India, and he has similar accent to me. It seems to understand him sometimes and not me. And it turns out that it is the training data has been American English, and there is a certain choice of words on how you ask. And now I've trained myself to talk to Alexa in my own home so that I can turn off the light and be lazy and not get up to turn off the switch. So it's not a done deal. And the other thing is, the easiest thing is first we are going to put a bunch of resources. We are going to link to GlobalSouthinAI.org. So we are going to link to those resources so you can go find it. I think Google has published blog, and we're going to link to that, of 100 languages that they've included. And then Facebook did research, Meta did a research, and I'm not promoting this in any way. I'm just telling you this is a research, just to be very clear, guys. They have a research called No Language Left Behind, which is kind of a little superfluous title, I would say, for this research, which is a model that they have published, which does translation for 200 languages. And so that is where the list is today. So if you go to Google, and we are going to bring a Google speaker who is going to talk to us about multimodal languages and their research from that has been done by Google. So we'll have a speaker in the next couple of weeks. So you can learn about that. But Google's research in their blog talks about 100 languages that they have support for. And they have, the Facebook research Nolo one has 200 languages. And each of these languages, when you get closer and try to talk to it, the performance of the model is very low. That means the AI understands the language, but will make a lot of mistakes. I find that much more frustrating when I think it can understand my language or my accent, or, and then it does not understand it. I feel like I don't exist, and it is not built for me. And there's been research on how people feel marginalized when they're not understood by the AI. And I'm beginning to fall into that camp, especially the more I talk to Google Home in my house, not Alexa. Alexa understands me better than Google Home for some reason. So it's not a done deal. We will share resources and where you can find where these are. So if you go to GPT-3's website, or if you go to Hugging Face, you will find, for many languages, you will find the models, and you could publish for your own language with Hugging Face and put it out there in their open source repository. So those exist, but I think it's still all work in progress. So I'm hoping that, native language speakers for every possible language will play with AI as it exists today, and then come up with, hey, this doesn't exist for understanding us with these nuances. The other thing, and I'm hoping that, my network, because I teach AI at Stanford, I teach AI ethics at Barcelona Technology School, my network and reach is and I worked in technology industry all my life. So I have people in technology industry, or I have UX designers because I teach one AIX design course, but my reach doesn't go into other people outside of, of tech typically. And so I'm hoping there are linguists outside my network, or anthropologists and people who have passion for this topic of bringing on general language will contribute to this. And maybe you can partner with somebody else, and you can talk to us if you say, I don't know coding, I'm not in tech, but I'm thinking of this and I know this space. Maybe we can help you. In fact, one of the things we said is you can make a submission in any language. And if you just know only your language, I heard this from somebody from Iran saying, they can't do this in English. And I said, that's okay. We will translate your submission to what we can understand in English, then that's okay too. So Suresh, hope you're working on something on voice, because I know you work with IoT and stuff.
Yeah. How does one submit for the voice, Sudha? What
doesn't matter. For all of them, it's the same thing. You go to globalsouthinai.org and you say submit, or and you just have two links at the top and bottom, and it will lead you to Open Review's website, which is a standard site for paper submissions in research. And you have to create an Open Review account, and then it'll take in all your information, and you can submit a 250-word blurb. And you can talk to us at our Slack if you're thinking of something. Especially, I'm hearing from people who want somebody to collaborate with them. So that's the thing. And the other thing on data, before we close out, I want to say, we also are taking submissions of reference applications in your world. So you could be in any of the Global South language speaking countries or pockets out there in the world, and you want to solve for a local problem using your local data set of people's voice and recording, or talks, or literature, or music, or anything else, but you're trying to solve for a problem that's very specific to, not to the general Western world that you're seeing, but it involves your local language in some form. There are reference applications that are being submitted, and that's also acceptable. Our whole goal is to add diversity. Think of AI out there 10, 20 years out that is going to be saying, I understand all the languages of the world. And is that the perfect AI that you want? What is the gap? Help us fill it, and talk to us if that's something that you're even considering, right? The other thing is like language pattern. One of my fascinations is as we look at language carries a lot of history and culture of people. And I'm fascinated on the history part of it. So I look at, I'm trying to learn about newer languages as part of this Global South in AI initiative. And each language I go in and try to learn, where it came from, how it evolved, or what are its roots, what happened. It is so full of history, and how the language evolved is based on some war that happened or colonization that happened. And it's just sad. But I also think the average person who's sitting in any of these Global South countries, and I'm talking this to the world, to people who are saying, nobody is waiting thinking, hey, my language is not included, and so now I'm just going to learn English and the AI is just going to speak English. That's another form of colonization, and I don't think we are going to get to that world, because there are smart people anywhere in the world who are working on technology and AI from wherever they are. So that gives me hope, because there is so much optimism. So when I'm talking to somebody in Brazil, right? They're sitting and saying, hey, this is I'm repeating myself, but this part about the Portuguese language, especially I was talking to somebody who's a lawyer, and he said, the way that law is written has a certain structure and bureaucracy that came from colonization, and now they're trying to decolonize that just for the field of law. And the goal is they want common people to understand what the law is saying so they can use it well. And that is a disservice when they can't understand because it is too bureaucratic. And they said that there is a national movement to go decolonize their language. The other thing I saw in Vietnamese language, it used to be written originally in kanji or Chinese script. And then they were colonized by the French. And at some point, they changed the writing to be of French origin. And so the language, if you're saying it's just data, I'm just going to get the language that is spoken or written and feed it to the AI. There's a lot of history and trauma and decisions people have made along the way that is sitting in the language when you're trying to get the language data set as just data feeds. And so only a local person who is sitting and wants the AI to talk to them can say, it's fine, we are writing in this script and we have accepted that, and this is how we are going. Now we want to go solve for this problem, or we want to go the AI to talk to us about jobs or whatever else you're working on. That's a decision, and only the local person who's talking the language can do, and not somebody who just looks at that as data feed and sitting here or anywhere else should do. But my point is there is so much history and movement of history and culture that kind of woven into the language. That's super fascinating for me. And nobody can bring that except you on what you would know as, the flavor of your language or the beauty of your language or the history and, things like that. And I saw one other thing. It's not just Global South, but I saw a paper on how word embeddings in NLP actually are misogynistic and biased against women. And so there was a research paper. And that got me thinking on various different languages. And unfortunately, I think this is around the globe, there's a lot of misogynistic words that imply misogyny in various languages. And so maybe you just want to deviate that for your language or and you might start with your language and you might find there's a pattern across multiple other languages. So there are many, many areas we can go. And this is the first time we are doing this. So we're just hoping this will be the beginning and we'll wake up something beautiful. So one of the things we are going to do with the September 10th event, and by the way, Yash is responsible for the September 10th event. So I'm just kind of putting her on the spot here. Once you're accepted, you're going to get invited to the Zoom, and Yash will be your point of contact on what's going to happen and how you're going to learn the poster session and get to build out your poster. So one of the sessions we are going to do is to teach you to build the poster. If you're already doing it and know to do it, great, you can help us too. The other thing, one of the tracks that we are going to do is, as we are working with various groups and people, we want to see whether we can collaborate across the different groups. And I didn't get to show that there is another site called AI for Bharat. Yash, will you be able to just find that site? So it's AI number 4 Bharat, which is a repository of 16 different Indian AI language research related to 16 Indian languages. Thank you, Yash. I'm just going to share the screen and show you that. Sorry. So our hope is there are people who are working on various different, there are pockets that are working like this. I'm just going to share my screen. So there's a group called AI for Bharat, and they've launched this at IIT Madras, which is one of the top technology colleges out there. And so they have AI language ecosystem in India. They're specifically talking about, speech recognition. These are all the different workshops. I believe this is the recording of that is available. But they also have resources. They also have resources like LAN Africa did. They have data sets, they have models, they're building out, and they have Indian names. That's the whole idea that you would have for different languages. And they have this NLP suite for specific languages. And I can tell you, it's for 16 Indian languages. The last time I checked, they have models, and so there is BERT for these Indian languages. There is NLP. There is transliteration. There's a lot of stuff. If this is such a beautiful resource, and so I just found Chris and Lanfrica's effort on that. I found this. I'm yet to see something else from some other part of Asia. I've not seen there is a database that is of researchers from Latino origin, hosted by Latinx in AI, but I've not seen their language resource thing like this. I believe they do have a language arms, but I don't know those people yet. So one of the tracks we are going to work on September 10th, after we get all the people who have accepted and they go through the poster session, is to see whether we can figure out, as program chairs, organizers, whether we can find what are common challenges across the different language diaspora in building out mainstream AI. And then maybe we can bring that. And one of our promise to the NeurIPS is we will publish a poster on our common learning or common challenge, so that we will bring that to mainstream NeurIPS, and maybe we'll find researchers who are already solving for it in different form, or we can build collaborations. Or maybe some of the people working here can go work on a PhD to build out their work, connecting with some other professors they'll meet at NeurIPS. That's hope that we will, we don't have to linearly do this and go on a path. It seems daunting when you're alone and you feel like the mainstream languages don't understand us or our accent or the beauty of our language or things like that. But we are all working on different pockets like that. And so maybe together we'll be able to do something better and at least accelerate this path out is my hope. Okay. Any last question from anybody? I want to see. I have not been tracking the chat. Let me see. Okay, great session. Thank you, guys. Okay, so globalsouthinai.org. If you're already working on making a submission, talk to us at globalsouthinai.slack.com, and we will give you feedback. We'll help you, move forward. And if you're ready to submit it now, because you will get your acceptance by 31st. And then if you need visa to come to NeurIPS and all that, we can make that, process started. And if you're anywhere and you think I can travel and I want to participate, it doesn't matter. We've signed up for a poster session. There's a common poster session on November 28th for all the affinity groups together, just at the kickoff of NeurIPS. That is live, and our promise is we will bring 5 posters, and I want diversity of them across languages and regions and all that. That would be live on the 28th of November. And if you can't join live and you make a submission and it's accepted by the review chairs, then we will have another remote hybrid session that is happening, I believe, on December 5th. And you'll get to present to NeurIPS on December 5th on their Zoom channel that's open to the world. So either way, you get to interact. And I believe they're giving us a handful of pass for NeurIPS. So if you get to come live to present at NeurIPS, it's not just you get to present your poster and in one corner and go away. You get to attend whole NeurIPS and you get to network and learn, and it's just amazing. That's in New Orleans, so in December. So with that, I'm going to wrap up, and I hope I will hear follow-ups either on LinkedIn or Twitter or back at our Slack channel from any of you. And please share this widely. I hope we will reach more people in Asia, because we're doing this in the morning time zone. And I'm looking forward to learn from your amazing work and support it. Thank you so much. With that, I'm going to wrap up.
Thank you, Sudha. It was a wonderful session. And yeah, all the questions are answered, and now we are all set
Thank
for
you so
Global South in AI.
Thank you so
Let's
much.
make
And
it great.
thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye. And I'll make sure that we add all the resources that will link back to Lanfrica and AI for Bharat and other resources that that you could work with on Global South.